Okay, everybody. In this next little video tutorial here, this is Adobe Presto. I'm Tim, of course. I wanted to show you guys how you can go into and get comfortable with layers and some things you want to think about in terms of the layer panel, which I always call the most important panel in all of Photoshop, in my opinion. It's where all the fun happens. So basically what I've got open ahead of time is two pictures here. Simultaneously open, and I'm just going to pull this tab off and highlight this for you all. By the way, you can pull off tabs and just kind of walk you through real quick the different properties and bells and whistles that are tied to layers in Photoshop. So of course, when you start off with any image that has not been saved as a Photoshop layered document, it'll have one layer called the background layer, and that'll be locked and it'll be turned on. So there's a little show hide icon here that you can turn on and off and be able to hide the layers, etc. So layers work in a top-down hierarchy. So whatever layer is on top of the layer order, that'll show itself first. So I'm going to bring this other picture into this one and show you what I mean in terms of kind of the technology that works behind layers. So I'm grabbing my move tool here and I'm going to drag this up and drop it into this file called interface. And you'll see that this checkerboard is on top of this guy that's all tatted up here in this picture. And you'll notice it automatically creates a layer one, and that's on top. So because this is on top, it's covering up the background layer. And then I can toggle that on and off. So your background layer comes locked by default. So keep that in mind. You can always click on the lock to unlock it. It becomes layer 0. And now my layers can be dragged independently of each other. So now we got our tattoo guy in front of layer 0, and you'll notice the little tiny thumbnails here show that as well. So one really cool tip I could show you is if you're new to Photoshop, I highly suggest going up to your properties dialog here, 4 layers, and going down to panel options and making that the largest it can possibly be so you can see those a little bit better. Also get in the habit of naming your layers, so you can double click on the name and rename it. Up here at the top real fast, these are all filters. So for example, if I have a text layer, I can turn on filters and just filter out text layers only. So if you got a lot of layers, that really helps. But sometimes if you're not sure how that works, you got to be careful that if that's turned on, you might be missing layers. They're actually there. They're just sort of hidden. This area here is where it says normal. If I select on a layer, it'll show you all different types of layer blends. And so I'll do another video on this basically where it takes you through different ways that you can blend that. I don't want to get into that too much detail, but I did want to show you that exists there. They're called layer blends. And I can also drop the opacity or how transparent that top layer is. And then also my fill for that layer and different buttons here, like if you hover over it, it'll tell you that locks the transparency for pixels, so you can't accidentally edit it. I don't use these ones a whole lot, but you can try to experiment with that. I do mess with opacity a lot though, and I do mess with layer blends quite a bit. Down here at the bottom though, this is to me the bread and butter of what layers do, or their capability of what they can do in Photoshop. So starting over here on the right, this deletes layers. It's a trash can. If you hover over it, it'll tell you that. That's pretty much self-explanatory. So if I click on layer 0, for example, and hit delete, it says, do you want to delete the layer? I say yes. Or I can drag it to the trash can. It'll also disappear without bringing up that prompt asking me if I want to delete it. The next one over here is the create new layer. What that does is it creates a new blank layer. So it does the exact opposite. You know it's blank when it shows you the little checkerboard there. So if I turn off these layers, now I'm just looking at the blank layer 2. If I turn these back on, it shows me the rest of the artwork on those layers. The little folder is the group layers. This is really good if you're trying to organize things, so you want to drag and drop into sort of like a folder within the layers. So when you click that, you'll get a group 1 layer, and you can drag layers inside of that. So it's really good if you want to like separate text or certain elements of your design while you're working in Photoshop. The next one is the layer adjustments button. I'm going to do a whole nother video on layer adjustments. And so there's just going to be all this stuff that doesn't make any sense to you. So I highly suggest watching that later. Don't watch that one first. or else none of this is going to make any sense to you right now. But when you watch the other one on layer adjustments, it will. And then we have layer masking. What that does is it slaps on this sort of white blank mask, and then use black color to cover up parts of your picture. I'm going to do a whole nother video on that one as well. And the last one is the layer styles or layer effects. And basically, this allows you to do certain special effects to different layers. So I'll also have another video, yet another video on layer styles and layer effects. So that pretty much does it for the layer palette. Just to kind of cover what the different buttons do and sort of what you can click on, how to create new layers, that it works in a top-down hierarchy and like a stacking order. And I will get into some other videos that discuss the sort of specifics about it, especially layer blends, layer adjustments, layer masking, and layer effects.